What is the most unethical resolution to a problem you've seen someone use that actually worked? At one of my jobs, it was pretty clear that a large $1 million contract customer was going to cancel with us because the salesperson screwed up and overpromised things that we didn't even do. We were even below margin with them, and losing this customer was the right thing to do. However, the former salesperson that got this huge deal had just been promoted because of the deal, and a new salesperson had taken over the account. The old salesperson blamed the new one, who only had 2 months with the company and was the one that discovered all the problems. And he had her fired. Then stepped in and fixed the account by negotiating a slightly higher fee to get back the margin and cut out the things that we just didn't do and never could fulfill. They saved the customer from leaving, made the account profitable, and got promoted again, all because they were able to use the new sales rep as a scapegoat. My dad is a really nice guy to a fault, like he suffers in silence kind of nice. I found out that he was getting bullied at work, so I uncovered everything about the a-hole who thought that he could get away with it. While asking around, I actually found out the guy was legal, and I even learned his real name and where he lived. I went to his house with a forged order of deportation with his legal name on it, and I threatened to file it if he kept picking on my dad. And if I did have to use it, some friends of mine would make sure he didn't have to worry about contacting his family once he was turned back to Mexico. If you know legal stuff, you understand that there's absolutely no way I could legally file something like that. And because he didn't know who I was, the threat of cartel violence became very real to him. My dad was visibly happier, and I was proud of my dirty work. I'm a train driver. Sometimes drunk people or teenagers find it really funny to play with the doors in a way that I can't close them and continue the journey because the doors don't let me drive if they're closed. They put their leg in between just right when the door closes and it's enough for the door to open again. Now one day, I was driving a modern train and those teenagers were at it again. We have a special kind of button on these newer trains where you can reset the doors and the doors will close, no matter what is blocking it. So I saw the kid putting his leg in between the doors again. I push the button and his leg is blocked in between. I see him panicking and I started driving just a meter to screw with him a little bit and make him scared. Somehow he got his leg out and lost his shoe. The shoe was inside the train. Then I stopped, thought about opening the doors again so he could grab his shoe, but figured, oh well, and just continued my journey. You better not play with the doors of a train again. Oh hell yeah. Fellow train dude here, engineer for those of us in the States, but we do the same stuff. I move freight. A few years ago, I'm rolling to town and I had a pretty good trip. The weather is fantastic, working daylights. I'm in a great mood. Last crossing before we hit the yard and I've got a pretty long train. I got the window open because we both know 99% of the job is just waving at kids. And as I head over the crossing, there's some jackass fuckknuckle in his car flipping me off. I had just started from a signal about 2,000 feet before the crossing, so I wasn't going very fast. Maybe 15 miles an hour. I looked at this guy, smiled, flipped him back off, went to idle, and set a minimum. Brought 1.5 miles of empty grain train through the crossing at 2 miles an hour. Don't flip off the train. You may win the battle, but we will win the war. It was me. In high school, some ass wouldn't stop pushing me around, picking me up, messing with my hair and clothes, and just saying awful things. I couldn't just beat him up because I was on my last warning. So I brought up the touching parts to my teacher. She asked if it was sexual harassment, and I just kind of went with it. Screw him, right? Dude got in a ton of trouble, had to leave, people hated him, and his family disowned him because they were homophobes and thought he was gay. I don't regret it even slightly. I worked for a ready-mix company. They had recently bought out a competitor, but hadn't rebranded the trucks. So a truckload of ready-mix heads out to the driveway. It gets rejected by a pain-in-the-ass customer. The rejected truck backs up a ramp, points the chute into one of the other brands of trucks, adds water, and goes back to the same driveway job. After a quick Google search, I realized that ready-mix is cement, but while reading this story, I definitely thought that it was like a ready-made cake mix. I thought this guy just backed into another truck and filled it full of curing cake batter on a hot summer day, which honestly, I think would have made this better. But the cement would certainly be harder to clear out. I know a gal in college who bribed, screwed, and stole from whoever she needed to be successful. I don't think she did a single assignment herself or took a single test without cheating. Only real work she ever did was with her face down and her rear up. She's an associate professor now. teaching things she's literally never done. Any project she's ever worked on, she spent her time partying, then stole the credit for other people's work after the data was collected and analyzed. She just straight up doesn't know a goddamn thing about what she teaches. Completely amoral psychopath. Spread rumors and would throw anyone under the bus for anything if it gave her a chance to swoop credit and opportunities. She has an almost instinctive grasp of Machiavellian ethics, with absolutely no ability to think critically or do basic shit. Like someone Borg implanted a raccoon with psychopathy, but left it innocent of any other human skill set besides crapping and sleeping. But she's getting paid, and the rest of us aren't, so what you gonna do? I had a job interview at Olive Garden on New Year's Day. At 5 a.m. on said day, I was lying on someone else's floor thinking, yeah, I'm not going. A couple days later, I remembered that I was still unemployed and actually should have gone to that interview. Dilemma. At one point, when I had applied, someone mentioned that it was a 2-step interview process, and that gave me an idea. I just called up and pretended that no one scheduled my second interview, and I didn't know what to do. They asked who I interviewed with, and I described a manager that I'd seen there. That's all they needed, and the manager I described was moving to another store. I got the second interview, no questions asked for the job, and was there for a while. I know that the manager who left knew something happened. He couldn't figure out what, but he knows it was something. I eventually told them because I thought it was funny, and thankfully so did they at that point. I'll also often lie on job applications, like not normal white lies, but big ones, that I make annoying to check into. Reference email off by one letter. The phone goes to the general headquarters of a former company I supposedly worked for, saying things like I honestly can't remember the manager's name. The company I recently got hired at believed they poached me from another sales company, and were quite pleased with themselves. I had been unemployed for 6 months. My dad's coworker was gifted a car from his neighbor when she passed. He didn't need the car, but knew that my dad did, and so gifted it to him. My family had been hit particularly hard by the recession, and had our minivan repoed early on, and we'd been heavily relying on a very unreliable Buick to get both my parents to work and me to school. We accepted the car, and went to the DMV to get it taxed, tagged, and titled. And when we got there, the lady doing the work had noticed the previous owner hadn't signed one spot on the title. When my parents explained that the previous owner had passed, and that we'd been gifted it from the person she left it to, the DMV lady said that they'd need to jump through a bunch of hoops, including having a death certificate and a letter from her estate. Then she just handed the title back to my parents, and we left. My parents got home, found a color-matched pen, forged the lady's signature, and went to a different DMV and got it registered. I don't even think we had that car a year before it got totaled in a parking lot, minding its own business. I've had customers cancel portions of a project due to budget concerns. However, our company had already started work and even mobilized the resources, so we'd hit them with a change order to recoup these costs. Often, the cost of the change order was higher than the value of the work that was removed from our scope, so the customer actually paid more for having less work done. I used to work in passenger rail. I brought a disabled train into the yard late one night, when everything was dark. We were lined up for an in-service track, and when we got there, there was a surprise portable train stop. But thankfully not a derail, so I radioed to my partner to stop. Too late, he runs over the flag and hits the trip. So I had him pull the train back, we told the dispatcher that the track was closed and we needed to reroute. He lines us up out of the yard, then back onto a different track. We secure the train, go into the tower, and emerge with signal maintainers' helmets. We secured the flag back to the track, rubbed the markings off the rail that indicated an overrun took place, and checked all the equipment to make sure there was no sign of anything. There were no cameras in the yard, thankfully, but if there were, they would have shown maintainers working on the train stop, and the yard was so dark that the detail would have been impossible to make out anyways. My partner that night was less than a year from retirement when that happened. It should have been a major near-miss incident with a whole investigation and so on and so forth, with both of us under investigation. Instead, it was nothing, thanks to my quick thinking. I covered up an incident the authorities would have considered very serious, despite nothing bad actually happening, and we both completely got away with it. My old partner is completely retired, and I've moved on to a different career that pays almost as much without the need to constantly give up nights and weekends. We never found out exactly why the track was taken out of service. Apparently a track maintainer took it out for some unknown reason, and it was never properly communicated with the tower. Someone kept stealing my food, so I laced it all with laxatives. I deliberately left milk gone bad in the dorms back in the day, so that it was drank by some dudes who had been stealing my milk for months. So guys, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to leave a like and a subscribe if you did. I'm ReddList. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you next time.